So you've just built yourself a PC. You got all the parts assembled and you're wondering, what should I do now? How do I install Windows, drivers, update everything, check if my hardware is working? Well, that's exactly what we're going to be doing in this video. So if you're perhaps building the PC for the first time and you've just done this bit, and now the second bit, what to do after, this is exactly what you're gonna find out. I'll show you step by step how to do everything. Let's go.
Looking for a cheap way to license your Windows? Check out Whokeys through the links in the video description. Make sure to use the code TN20 to get a 30% off. Paste the license to the activation settings and you're all done. This license is for Windows 10, but you can upgrade it to Windows 11 for free. They also offer Microsoft Office 19 license. Use the same code TN20 to get a 30% off. Check out whokeys.com in the video description below.
So number one thing you want to do is have two things ready. Number one, Windows install USB stick. If you don't know how to do that, I've got a tutorial on the channel so you can check it out. I've explained it all in there. In the tutorial, I'm showing Windows 10, but Windows 11 install disk making is exactly the same, so you can just follow that. I've got that one ready. Another thing we want to get ready is get the latest BIOS ready, and I'll show you how to do that now. Yeah. Now, you do need a separate computer to get that one ready, so make sure you've got a laptop or desktop there. As you can see, I've got this USB stick here. It's completely empty, and that's how we want to do it. You might want to format this as well, like FAT32, and then name it something, but make sure it's not in some kind of weird format, but usually it's all right. If it's a brand new stick, you might want to format it to FAT32, and then that will work. Then you want to find the motherboard page of the manufacturer. So we are using the Gigabyte B760DS3H motherboard, this one over here. And once you have found that, whether it's Gigabyte, MSI, Asus, ASRock, any of the brands, there it will work exactly the same. You go to the motherboard page and then there's something that says key features, specifications and support. You want to go for that, the support of the motherboard. You're going to click on that. And then here we want to go to downloads. And downloads, if we go, there's drivers here, which we don't want. We want to go to BIOS. As you can see here, it's not so easy here on Gigabytes. We can't actually even unsee that, the drivers for the audio, but we want to go for the BIOS, okay? We're gonna open the BIOS, and as you can see, we've got an F4A that was released on the 14th of April, 2023. You might have a newer one, so you can go for that one as well. Now, bear in mind, sometimes when you have a bit of an older motherboard, for example, a B550 from Ryzen or something like that, what will happen is you might have kind of a... Alrighty, so where were we? Oh, sometimes you might need to update your BIOS in certain BIOS versions way, because there's so many different versions, but they can't keep all of the support for all of the BIOS basically there. So you might have to go from 1 to 6 to 7 or whatever, just so you know. But right now in here, there's usually something in the red on the top says that first update to that BIOS and then that BIOS. But right now there's nothing that, and because it's quite a new board, that's not what usually happens there as well. So we're going to just click download. The BIOS goes there. We're going to show in folder, and we're going to go right click, well, let's go here, extract all. We're going to browse. We're going to put it into that USB drive that's empty. Okay, just let it extract straight the BIOS into that USB drive. Okay, here we have now the drive open with all of this. Basically, we don't need anything apart from that .f4a file. You can see it's the biggest file there as well. I would just shift delete everything else. You don't need them. That's the BIOS update we need. And then basically, the USB is now ready. Now, this is not how to update BIOS via Q flashback, which this supports as well. I've got another video on my channel there if you want to check that out. For example, if you've got a CPU that's not supported on this motherboard, but you want to update it without the CPU installed, for example, or something like that. But what we want to do now is plug in your power cable, HDMI cable to the graphics card, and then this USB that you just had in the back of the motherboard. It doesn't matter which one really. And then you want to get a keyboard and mouse or something like that. I've got one mouse in there, but for the keyboard, for this video, we're going to be using something from Montech. Montech M key, and this is supposed to be mechanical keyboard, so this will be my first one. The switches are Gateron G Pro 2, so let's have a look. Pretty cool design here for the box. I'm liking it. Okay. Whoa, that's quite heavy. Whoa, look at that. Look at the color of this. It kind of changes color the way you look at it. Like in some ways it looks green to me and then in some ways blue. Oh, some spare keys. Interesting. There's a spare spacebar replacement if you want. And then I think that's escape, control, and is that enter? Yeah, there we go. And then you've got the keycap puller tool. For example, let's take this control here. Take the control off and then replace it with that. Unfortunately, this is not a wireless keyboard, so you will have to connect your wire to it. In the back there is a USB-C. Push your wire through there, and then that will hold it tight there. And then we'll pop this cable into there. Flick the power switch and then turn it on. And then we should be able to go straight to BIOS. Okay, first thing we're gonna do is advanced mode, which will be F2. Hit F2. We're gonna go to Q flash, which is F8. We're gonna hit F8. Okay, we're gonna enter that. We're gonna go to system volume. As you can see, that's the only one over there. So we'll click on there, click go. Are you sure you want to update BIOS? We go from version 1 to version 4A basically. Verifying file. And then press to start. Okay, it's gonna restart and then update the BIOS. I like to update the BIOS straight away because then we don't have to worry about it later on, and later if you change any of the fans or XMP or start working with this, your BIOS, like you start with the subsystem first and then it's all done. Now the option here is, what we wanna do is hit XMP on, which means the RAM profile. I'm gonna go to F2 for advanced options. And then what we wanna go is gigabyte optimization. Yeah, whatever that means. Multi-core performance, CPU clock, okay. So then when you go to settings here, on the settings, the IO ports, you wanna make sure that the internal graphics is enabled so that we get the iGPU support as well. And that will do for us. Hit F10, which means save configuration and exit. Okay, then you stick your Windows install into one of the ports in the back. I recommend using one of the USB 3.0 ports because it will just use faster if you're using USB 3.0 drive. Okay, once your Windows install is plugged in, hit F10 now, and we're gonna save, just exit basically, save configuration and exit. And then as you can see, it's already loading into the Windows install settings. Once we are over here now, you can see that we've got this settings. Just choose like your region and things. Obviously, I'm here in the UK, so we'll just press next, install now. For the Windows key, what I'd recommend you to do now is, I don't have a product key. We can actually sort it out later. I recommend taking Windows 11 Pro, accept, press next, and don't upgrade but go customized install. Okay, so now you've got drive 0 and drive 1, and depending which drives you have on your system, you'll see something like that. Usually what it is the drive 0 is the top slot and drive 1 and so on downwards, but it might not always be the case. So if you're not sure which drives you have, I recommend only leaving the OS drive that you intend to install Windows into the PC and then pull the secondary or other drives, just temporarily disconnect them so you're sure. So I'm going to use that drive 0 and it's already copying files over. Okay, there we are. We are in this Windows kind of setup mode now because the Windows is actually installed on the disk now, but now it's like setting it up. Select your region. And then keyboard layout, we're gonna go for that. I don't want the secondary keyboard layout. We can all do that later. Now, here's another thing. If you have internet, right, you can plug in your Ethernet there. But right now, let's say you have either an older version of the install and it doesn't find the drivers for your BIOS or something like that, and you can't get past in this option. Then I'm gonna show you a way how you can install this or set it up without internet, which might actually be very helpful for you regardless whether you have internet or not. What you want to do now is Shift F10, and that will open up the command. So once you see this on your screen, what you want to do is type in this command, OOBE /bypass NRO, okay? And then all you do is just hit enter and then see what happens now. The Windows will restart and it will start the actual process again. But that will also save you from logging into the Microsoft account. And basically it's going to create a local account instead of the internet connection. So we're going to click United Kingdom. Actually, I have it keyboard layout. US. I've got the US layout for the keyboard. And now you have this over here, this option available, which says I don't have internet. Previously you didn't have that available. You're going to click that, continue with limited setup. Yes, that's exactly what we want. And now we can create a local user, which means you don't have to log into your Microsoft account. We'll call this security questions. I usually just go the first option and then choose an answer that you'll remember. I'm going to make them all the same because I'll never use them. No, enter, required only, no, accept, no, just basically everything a big no. No, I don't want you to gather someone else's data. And the big corporations, yeah, gather their data and their hundreds of PCs, but basically that's that. And as you can see now, the setup is much easier. And here's the Windows. Now, first thing you might want to do is connect internet to your computer now. And then once we see that we've got internet connection, let's see, it's identifying. Okay, we're going to start installing things. First of all, Gigabyte Control Center. I'm going to install this because that will make our updating of all the drivers for all the motherboard and things much easier. So let it do that. If you've got a different motherboard, whether it's ASUS or MSI, it works very, very similarly. I find ASUS is probably one of the simplest ones and works the best one. But basically, okay, let's press next. I agree, finish. But basically, this will just help find all the drivers for our motherboard. So what we want to do now is update Windows, first of all. So we're going to hit the star key and then type in update or check for updates. Yep, check for updates, click enter. It will take us to here. Okay, we're going to check for updates. Most likely there's going to be updates when you do that. As you can see, there's a whole lot of updates to do. But while it's doing those updates, we can do something else as well, so we're not wasting our time to get ready. You can open Microsoft Store here and type in something called Cinebench, because this will help us test our CPU. And another thing I recommend you to get as a creator is Quicklook, this one here, because with spacebar then you can easily play back H.265 files, for example, which you can't do really on Windows without paying for this, but this will just quick preview of files. That's very, very helpful there. So let that download there as well. Let's go to the internet and let's download some things. First of all, hardware info 64. Here, free download local, and that will basically help us diagnose the hardware inside the PC to see if anything's, not working properly, if anything's overheating, if all that. That's a fantastic thing to do. Except we're just going to install that hardware info next install. Boom, launch hardware info 64. Let's do that, might as well. And then click sensors only because you don't really need anything else. So make sure that sensors only is ticked and then press start. It's just gonna analyze the hardware and then we can just see now what is going on here. As you can see, we can see our CPU package, how much wattage we're pulling, what's the CPU temperature, what's the clock speeds and all that. So this is not just a good hardware monitoring software, but also bottleneck diagnosing software. So for example, if you want to know, how much VRAM, for example, I'm using, then this will show you there in the end. Let's see if we've got NVIDIA driver. Oh, there we go. It's still, something's there. NVIDIA RTX 3050 here, and we can see how much is available and how much GPU memory is allocated. We're only using 321 megabytes, for example. For some reason, it didn't find the NVIDIA control panel, so let's download it here. Usually that does it anyway, but never mind, we'll just skip that one for now. We'll just skip that for now because we're gonna have to open the drivers anyway. So I would say a download and install. We're gonna download and install all of these anyway. Let's see. Don't restart it until it's just done everything, because sometimes it installs everything and then we'll restart once. Okay, we've got hardware monitor there open. Then another thing we want to get ready is NVIDIA drivers, or our graphics card drivers. So you go to download NVIDIA drivers, click enter, and then official drivers here from NVIDIA. GeForce, as you can see, that's our one here, and then pick the series which you have. If you have 40 series, click the 40 series. If you have laptop or PC, we're gonna go for the 30 series, not notebook, but basically dedicated. We're gonna pick RTX 3050, Windows 11, and now for the download type, I always recommend creators to get Studio driver. It's slightly more stable and more support for the studio applications. Game Ready driver will work as well, but as a creator, I always go with this one. Choose your language, go search. It'll find the driver. We're gonna click download, and then you're gonna have to click download again. And then now it's gonna start to download the NVIDIA driver. Another thing I recommend doing straight away is hit Windows and then click pin. Set up sign in pin, Windows hello pin, because that will make sign in a lot easier. We're gonna set it up and then just put your password in first and then a new pin, because every time you log in, the pin will just come in. So it takes a few clicks faster logging in, which always will help. Then we're gonna hit Control Shift and Escape. That will open our task manager. And then here we're gonna go to start up apps, okay? And there's a few things we wanna turn off. First of all, OneDrive, disable. Microsoft Edge, disable. Where is our Quicklook? Leave that one on, that will help us. We'll leave these ones there for now. There's usually the Microsoft Teams as well, but that might come up later. Check for updates, let's have a look. As you can see, we're pending the restart now, so let's restart. There's all sorts of cool light modes here on this keyboard while it's restarting. With this rotary knob, when you hit function C and this, you can go through different lighting modes there. And you can change colors. Default, this is a volume knob, and then when you click it, it will become a zoom knob. So interesting. I like the full size one because I often type in a lot of numbers, so I do use the numpad quite a bit. It will help me be faster, which is nice. I'm not sure if you can see the RGB there. Yeah, look at that. Okay, we'll go back to check of updates. Okay, there's some more things to download. I'm gonna download everything. Now, another thing you want when you're running Intel CPUs with iGPU inside is something called Intel Driver and Support Assistant. I'm just gonna Google that or ping that. We're gonna download this and then we're gonna install it as well. Agree, install, accept, yes. Basically, that program will make sure that your integrated graphics drivers for the iGPU inside your CPU are up to date, which will give you like stable and better support for, you know, even creative applications and so on. But then also if you run any of the other Intel hardware, for example, LAN drivers or Bluetooth and Wi-Fi or something like that, that will also help to keep all of those updated to the latest version. It says to restart. I'm not going to restart it now because we don't actually need the restart for now. We're just going to wait for that download to complete there. Another thing what we can do now is open the Gigabyte Control Center. Okay, we're going to press accept. So if you're first time here, let's first time tutorial, press start, press to start the tutorial. It's interesting, but the only thing is to skip it. Interesting. So then if we go to this update here, now that should give us the driver updates for the motherboard hardware and the latest updates here, as you can see here. What we can do it now is we can check if there's any updates available, and then okay, it did find loads of things here, so that's not as good as ASUS's. ASUS's is a bit better labeled there, but basically what I have found is the motherboard manufacturers, for example, they don't update the latest drivers on the website as well as they do like on the center. So basically, whether you have Gigabyte Control Center or Asus Armory Crate or MSI Center, I think it's called, then there you'll have the latest update much faster. So for example, if we go to Gigabyte B760 DS3H DDR4, okay, this motherboard here, if we go to support, you can go Windows 11, and then now you have all these different audio drivers and chipset drivers and LAN drivers and SATA and RAID and VGA drivers and all these things, Intel graphics drivers, but they might not be the latest ones. As you can see, look how all this graphics driver is there. Actually, there's much newer drivers available, so that's why we're using this control center here. But what you want to do is you want to untick the wrong ones. For example, we don't want internet security. Basically, if it says software here, we don't want that. Storage library, no. RGB tool. If you want to actually control the RGB and things, so we're going to leave the RGB tool. Performance library, don't need that. Driver, yes. So this is for our motherboard. We want all the drivers here. Intel engine management systems, all the LAN drivers, Intel UHD graphics drivers. Actually, we don't need that one because we're going to be getting this from the Intel driver and support there. Let's have a look. Intel filter driver. There we go. Realtek Dragon software. We don't want that. Software, don't want that. Intel XTU, actually, that is quite helpful. If you want that, I'd recommend getting that one as well. That's a good software. So all the other ones, I don't really recommend, okay? And what we do now is install, and then now it starts to install all the latest drivers. So let's see. We've got the latest Windows Update installed there. So we're gonna leave this to install there. While that's installing, we're gonna go to downloads and then install the graphics driver, NVIDIA driver there, while we're at it as well. While it's installing all the other hardware drivers, let's install that as well. Now, some people say don't install loads of things at the same time. I say, heck, life's short, let's install everything at the same time, and then, you know, it'll be fine. In my case, it's always been fine. Now, when you install the graphics card driver, we want to choose the NVIDIA graphics card driver, not the GeForce Experience, okay? Because we don't want that software, and not Express, but custom install. We're going to click next, and then make sure that this is ticked here, perform a clean installation. So as you can see, our current driver that comes with Windows is 5.12.77, but there's newer version available, so we're going to upgrade to that one. HD order driver, and then physics system. You can uncheck these ones if you don't want them, but I usually leave them checked, because if you want like audio to come out from your monitor or something like that, then you might want the audio driver for the GPU. So it all comes helpful. Don't worry if the screen goes black sometimes halfway through, because NVIDIA is like uninstalling and installing the graphics driver, so it'll be fine. Okay, GPU driver is installed there as well. Intel XTU is installed as well. By the way, you can unplug your USB stick from the back of the motherboard. Okay, looks like we did all the updates. As you can see, the only driver here is the Intel UHD, but we don't want that. So now finally, we can do is hit that restart again. Update and restart. Okay, back to Windows updates. Check for updates. Let's see if there's anything else. We're not going to do the Intel system updates here until we go to something like Intel driver and support assistant. Run that program. Basically, it's going to open this edge here, and we want the Intel graphics driver to be installed. Okay, begin installation of the driver. Scroll down, agree, start. Okay, we can put the side panel on as well if you haven't done that yet. Okay. Now, while it's updating that, what we can do is, I don't want that. We'll reboot it later. What we want to do is we're going to go to Deep Cool CH510 Mesh Digital. I'm going to go to downloads because there is manual digital setup. There we go. That's what we want. We want the software that will run that screen there. Interestingly, looking at this case here while it's downloading there, you can see that you can put 220mm fans on the bottom there as well. 3 on the top, 3 in the front, and then 1 in the back. And if you have 140mm, 2 in the front, 2 in the top, and then 1 in the back as well. Let's go to downloads and then extract the software for the screen and then open it. More info, run anyway. So as you can see, that's how simple it was. Turn it on and then straight away it's down here. If you right click on it, I pressed launch at Windows Startup, so it will straight away start showing us the temperature over there. What else you can do here is display switch. You can switch it from CPU to GPU, but for me, like, more important would be to see the CPU temperature there. Then GPU, language support. You can choose the Fahrenheit instead of Celsius as well if you wanted to. But I want to go one more time to here. Task Manager, Startup Apps, and now you can see Microsoft Teams disable. I don't want that starting as we go in there. R control. Yeah, sure. Okay, and then let's do another final restart. Okay, hardware info is open there. What I want to open now is Cinebench, because we've got our graphics driver installed, we've got all the hardware drivers installed, we've got our Windows up to date, we've got all the software that will keep our hardware up to date, like the Intel iGPU and Intel support drivers assistant. Everything is working. So now what we want to see is we want to make sure that our cooler does run like good enough. So we're going to go advanced benchmark. Let's see one test. Let's see how we're doing. 124.5 watts pulled, and then our core temperatures are 65 average. The max is 74. So maximum we hit was 78 degrees. Our core clock's max was 4.8. Maximum 125 watts we were pulling there. So we're not thermal throttling, as you can see here. Definitely not a problem in terms of the CPU there. Now, as you can see, the PL1 limit is 125 and the PL2 limit is 241. So what we can do is, let's see if we do Speed Optimizer 2.0. If we hit that, oh, there's a latest XTU available there. Let's install the update for that. Another restart. Go on then. Okay, Speed Optimizer. Let's optimize, see what happens, see if it can do. Failed. Okay, we'll go to Advanced Tuning tab here now then. Let's open up all the power here. Okay, power windows, max, turbo, unlimited, enabled. Two of the cores go 4.9, as you can see, then 4.7, and then 4.5. So let's see what happens here if we hit go now. Okay, we're pulling 131 watts, 132 watts, 4.13, 4.89, the clock's there. Let's refresh the hardware info so it can know the PL1 and 2 limits. As you can see, PL1 and PL2 limits are, it's no limits there now, 4,000 watts. That means no limits basically. Core clocks, we're keeping them all the same very easily. 17,000 points. To me, that works perfectly. As you can see, we're 83 degrees with it, but we're pulling a lot more power than what we should be as well. So at this point now, you can see that our PC is working perfectly. We've got Windows installed and activated. We've got the hardware, all the software is updated. We've got all the software that keeps the hardware updated. We've got the GPU driver update. We've got everything done there, including a little test to see if the hardware works perfectly. As you can see, we didn't thermal throttle here. The problem would be if we see thermal throttling here. 83 degrees at 100% utilization on Cinebench, like a synthetic test like that, absolutely no problem. As you can see, some of these cores are reaching almost 4.9 as well there, gigahertz. So to me, everything's working perfectly now. If you want to know how to set up fan curves for your PC, which you would do at this point now, then I've got a video for that on the channel. I highly recommend you go check that one out. I'll explain everything, how to keep the PC as cool and as quiet as possible, and all the theory behind it. It's all in there, but I'm not going to include it in this video. Secondly, if you want to stress test or benchmark your system and how to do that, then I highly recommend you go check out another video on my channel, which I've already done, but I'm not gonna leave it in here. What you can do now at this point is just start installing all your software for creative applications, what you want. Adobe Creative Cloud or video or photo editing softwares, DaVinci Resolve, 3D, Blenders, V-Rays, Maya, whatever you're using, then at this point now, that's where you would install those programs. I hope this was simple enough for you, and if you still have any other questions, I'll meet you in the comment section below. But also remember, if you do want to build yourself the best bang for buck creator PC, then there's a link in the description below. Likes and subs, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.